In 1961, inside a small room at Yale University, Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that would send chills down the spine of the entire world. He recruited ordinary people, teachers, accountants, factory workers, and told them this was research about memory. The task sounded simple. Every time the other person answered incorrectly, you press a button to deliver an electric shock. Starting at 15 volts, then 30, then 45, gradually increasing. At 150 volts, the person on the other side began screaming in agony. At 300 volts, they begged to be released, and at 450 volts, complete silence. The person in the other room was an actor. There was no real electricity, but the people pressing the buttons didn't know that. They heard the screams, saw the person writhing in pain, yet they continued. Why? Because there was a man in a white lab coat standing beside them, voice calm and steady, saying, "Please continue." That's all it took. No threats, no shouting, just one polite sentence. And 65% of participants, more than 6 out of 10 people, pressed the button all the way to 450 volts. These weren't monsters. They were ordinary people just like you, just like me. They simply didn't realize they were being controlled. You think that's a story from 60 years ago? You think you would never do such a thing? Let me be blunt with you. You're doing the equivalent every single day. The only difference is nobody's wearing a white lab coat. They're your boss, your partner, your best friend, and they're controlling you in ways so subtle that you keep believing this thought: this is my decision. Today, I'm going to expose 5 dark psychology tactics that people are using to manipulate you. Not through force, not through commands, but by infiltrating your unconscious mind, turning their thoughts into your thoughts. And if you don't wake up to this reality, you'll spend your entire life never knowing whose script you're actually living. The first tactic, and also the most common one, has a fascinating name: the reciprocity trap. Robert Cialdini, who spent 15 years researching persuasion, calls this the most powerful weapon of influence, and it works in a way that's terrifyingly simple. Imagine an ordinary morning. Your colleague brings in a box of pastries, smiling warmly, "I just made these, try one." You take one, say thank you, take a bite. It's delicious. That afternoon, they stop by your desk, voice slightly hesitant, I'm kind of stuck with this report. Could you help me look it over?" You're on a deadline, you're exhausted, but you still nod your head yes. Why? Because your brain has activated an ancient evolutionary mechanism. When someone gives you something, you owe them. Not money, but obligation. An invisible obligation, silent yet strangely heavy. And smart people, they know this. They never give you gifts unconditionally. They give to receive back 10 times over. Machiavelli once wrote in The Prince that people are quicker to forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. It sounds brutal, but that's the raw truth about human nature. We remember concrete debts more clearly than abstract emotions. And when someone creates that debt, even if it's just a box of pastries, a cup of coffee, a gentle compliment, they've installed a hook inside your mind. A hook that later on, they just need to pull gently and you'll comply. But this isn't even the most frightening tactic yet. The second tactic is far more sophisticated. It's called emotional anchoring. And it doesn't attack your rational mind. It attacks something deeper, somewhere you have no control over. Have you ever run into someone and just hearing their voice, catching their perfume, you suddenly feel something? Not love, not hatred, but an indescribable sensation, as if you're being pulled back to a moment in the past. That's an emotional anchor, a trigger point they've installed in your subconscious mind. Carl Jung once said that we as human beings don't live in the present. We live in countless layers of memory, layers of emotion stacked upon each other. And whenever someone touches exactly the right layer, whether intentionally or not, they can control your reactions without saying a single word. Here's an example. There was someone who was there for you during your weakest moments. They didn't do anything grand, just listened, just held you, just said, "It's going to be okay." And then many years later, when you see them again, even though you know clearly they're not a good person, even though you know how many times they've betrayed you, you still can't walk away because they anchored your emotions to the image of the Savior. Every time you see them, your brain doesn't perceive the person standing in front of you now. It sees the memory. It sees that feeling of safety from years ago, and it clings to that desperately. This is why toxic relationships are so incredibly difficult to leave, not because you're weak, but because the limbic system in your brain, the part that controls emotions, it doesn't care about logic. It only remembers, this person once made me feel special. And as long as they can recreate that feeling, even for just 10 seconds, you fall right back in. But if you think only close relationships can control you, then you're mistaken. The third tactic, information control, is precisely what master manipulators use to shape your entire worldview without you having the slightest clue. Here's how it works. Someone wants you to hate a particular person. They don't say it directly, "You should hate them." Instead, they tell you stories. Stories that sound neutral on the surface, but are carefully curated and filtered. They tell you about the time that person talked behind your back. They tell you about the time that person betrayed a mutual friend. They'd keep telling these stories over and over until in your mind, the image of that person becomes nothing but negative puzzle pieces assembled together. You never see the good side of that person because they never allowed you to see it. This is what Nietzsche warned us about over 100 years ago. There are no facts, only interpretations. Every storyteller has an agenda, and when you only hear one perspective, you're not discovering the truth, you're being shaped by someone else's narrative. Psychology calls this confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that reinforces beliefs you already hold. Once someone has planted a certain image of someone in your head, your brain will automatically filter information. You only see what aligns with that belief, and you dismiss everything that contradicts it. This is why skilled manipulators never argue with you. They don't need to. They simply control the flow of information you receive, and then you convince yourself. The fourth tactic is social proof manipulation, exploiting the herd mentality. And this is perhaps the most ruthless tactic because it plays on humanity's most primal fear, the fear of abandonment. In 1951, Solomon Asch conducted an experiment that was deceptively simple yet deeply haunting. He showed a group of people two straight lines, one measuring 10 centimeters, the other 15 centimeters, then asked, which line is longer? The answer was obvious, but in the group, everyone except one person was an actor, and they deliberately gave the wrong answer. Something remarkable happened. 75% of participants, despite knowing the correct answer, still chose the wrong one simply to conform with the crowd. This is evolutionary instinct at work. Millions of years ago, if you were separated from your tribe, you died. Therefore, your brain learned a fundamental lesson: follow the majority equals survival. And to this very day, you still carry that gene inside you. Manipulators know this intimately. They don't tell you what to do. They simply say, everyone's doing it, or that's what everybody thinks. And you, even though deep down you disagree, still nod your head in agreement because you don't want to be the odd one out. You don't want to be seen as the crazy one. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to gain acceptance. And what's the price of wearing it? You lose your authentic self. You live according to other people's standards, think according to other people's templates, and then one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize who's staring back at you. And finally, the fifth tactic, the most terrifying of all, Intermittent reinforcement, or what we might call unpredictable rewards and punishments. This is the psychological weapon that keeps you trapped, even when you know full well you're suffering. In 1930, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner conducted an experiment with rats. He placed a rat in a box with a button. Every time the rat pressed the button, it received food. The rat learned very quickly. But Skinner didn't stop there. He changed the rules of the game. This time, when the rat pressed the button, sometimes it got food, sometimes it didn't. Completely random. And something strange happened. The rat pressed the button even more frantically. It couldn't stop. Because its brain kept thinking, maybe next time I'll get it. This is the exact mechanism behind gambling, behind gaming, and behind toxic relationships. Have you ever been in a relationship where today they treat you like royalty, but tomorrow they're cold as a stranger? Today they tell you they love you, tomorrow they disappear without a single word of explanation. And you, even though you know clearly this isn't right, still stay? That's intermittent reinforcement at work. Machiavelli once said, "People fear uncertainty more than obvious misery." And that's the brutal truth. If someone is consistently terrible to you, you'll leave. But if they're good sometimes and bad other times, your brain cannot let go. It keeps thinking, if I just try a little harder, they'll go back to how they used to be. But here's the reality. Those good moments aren't for you. They're a tool. They're bait to keep you stuck in the loop. And you'll remain trapped forever unless you realize this fundamental truth. This isn't love. This is manipulation. So now, after knowing all 5 of these tactics, what do you do? I'm not telling you to suspect everyone around you. I'm not asking you to become cold and calculated in every single action, but I am telling you this. Become conscious. Become aware. Ask yourself this question. This decision I'm about to make, does it truly come from me? Or am I simply reacting according to a pattern that someone else has installed in me? Remember this, manipulation is not magic. It's an art. And once you see the technique, it loses its power over you. Nietzsche had a quote I deeply appreciate. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But let me modify it slightly. What cannot control us is what we've already recognized. For the next 3 days, observe. Observe when someone gives you a small gift. Observe when someone tells you stories slanted in a particular direction. Observe when you're doing something because everyone else is doing it. And ask yourself, is this truly what I want? Because ultimately, freedom isn't about having nobody try to control you. Freedom is knowing exactly who's trying to control you and having the power to say no. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't see before, do me a favor and leave a comment below telling me which of these 5 tactics hit closest to home for you. Was it the reciprocity trap? The emotional anchoring? Or maybe you're currently stuck in that intermittent reinforcement cycle and you're just now realizing it. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to finally break free. And if you want to dive deeper into the psychology of influence and how to protect your mind from manipulation, make sure you're subscribed because we're just getting started. The next video is going to show you how to spot a manipulator within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. And trust me, you don't want to miss that. I'll see you there.